Hi guys and welcome back to Sports Go HD and welcome back to my review of FM13. Now obviously the game's been out for a long time and I was going to make one of these a long time ago when the game was out for a month or so, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to wait. I've played now 529 hours on FM13 according to Steam, so I feel like I've played long enough now to make an honest review, a full review of what I think of this year's game. I mean, to be honest, I'd be staggered if there's anybody who's played more than 529 hours. I'm sure there are people, but I'm yet to come across anybody. So I feel like I'm in a position I can make a review of the game. I've come up with a few points, 5 or 6 points of what I do and what I do not like on the game. But generally, I think the game is very good. I just want to put that one out there straight away, and I'll give a bit of a conclusion towards the end of the video. But first of all, what I do like the director of football role within the game. I made a video, I think it was on my previous channel, I made a video on it about the need for a director of football because that's what is in football in real life at the moment, and they've included it and I think they've executed that role very, very well. I like the new staff roles, for example the head of youth development, that sort of thing. So I can just show you, I've just loaded up a completely random save. Oh, it's not even a save, I just loaded the game up just to try and get it in. They have not actually got a director for that, doesn't work. But the head of youth development, Liam Brady is the Arsenal one, very good. Like that element. I like being able to go into staff responsibilities and allow people to do things. It means I don't have to do things I don't want to do. For example, I don't want to be in charge of bringing in youth players to the club and informing of their development. I like allowing that to be youth development, head of youth development to do that. Scouting, setting assignments for scouting team. I like the chief scout to do that. Finding new clubs for first team players you've listed and stuff like that. I like the director of football to do all that. So I think that's a very, very good addition to this year's game. So that's 2 points really: the staff roles and the director of football and the staff responsibilities screen. I think that's very, very good. I think the interface of this year's game is much better than on previous year's games. It's a completely different interface to what we've had before. It's a little bit more arcadey, but I prefer it. I think it's much more easy on the eye. I think everything is much easier to find, and it's the first FM in a hell of a long time that I've decided that I don't need a skin to improve it. I've tried some skins, but nothing compared to this interface. I find this one is much more user-friendly than any skins I've downloaded. I've downloaded the majority of them, and for the first time, they don't compare to this one. Another thing I like is the player interaction. When you manage international teams, if a player gets injured, for example, and then they ask you, you can talk to them and they're like, is my role under threat within the international team? Or if you drop a player, they question you. I like that. I think that's a good role to have, good feature to have within the game. So that's a big positive for this year's game. I like that one. Also, I like the difficulty level. I think the difficulty level is about right. I think, in my opinion, it's the hardest game they've made yet, because there are a few negatives. Initially, there was a lot of bugs within the game. The crossing bug was the big one, but they fixed that, and that's good. It's good that they fixed that. That's another good thing, is they've patched the game quite nicely this year, I think, and fixing a lot of the bugs that needed fixing immediately. So that's another good positive. But the difficulty level, as I was saying, is very good. Hardest game yet, but I like a challenge. I like it being harder. If it's too easy, it gets boring very quickly. But this year's game is hard, and I genuinely very rarely know, no matter who I'm managing as, very rarely know, what the result's going to be, like you used to be able to do on previous FMs. When, for example, on 2012, you had the corner glitch, and I knew every game I was going to get a goal off the corner glitch if you aim for the near post and get your tallest player there with the best jumping and heading. Then you always get a goal. But this year, I think they've fixed it, because I've noticed very few corner goals this year. So very good, the difficulty level. Now, what I don't like is the past reputation of the manager. Now, it's realistic in the sense that if you set your past rep at Sunday League footballer or semi-professional footballer, and you try to manage Arsenal, Real Madrid, Barcelona, or even QPR or Norwich, or even if you try to manage MK Dons or Charlton or someone like that, the players just don't listen to you. Now that's realistic in the sense that if you yourself walked into the Real Madrid dressing room and tried to tell the likes of Sergio Ramos, Cristiano Ronaldo, Kaká, etc. what to do, they would not pay the slightest bit of interest into what you're saying, and they would tell you to piss off, basically, in all honesty. That's realistic, but I think they've gone too far, because this is just a game, and I know they're trying to make it as realistic as possible, but it is just a game, and I think it's at the point where if you're going to have it to this level, then there is no point in being able to set your own reputation, because if you want to set it realistically as a Sunday League reputation, because that's what majority of people are, but you want to manage, say, I don't know, just say your favourite team is Manchester United, and you do that, the players don't listen to you, and it ruins the save, because the players don't listen to your tactics, they don't respond to you in team talks, and your general performance on the pitch is just screwed. It's realistic, as I was saying, but it just ruins the game experience, I think. So the only alternative is to set yourself to international rep, to get them to actually listen to you and it work properly, or professional footballer, and then they sort of listen to you and it's a little bit more balanced. But for me, the only alternative is to go to international reputation, which is not what I am, and I like to be able to set it to on previous years Sunday League. But I understand why they've done it. It is realistic, and it's been the same for the last couple of games. I mean, I think last year, pre-patch last year's game, I think you could set yourself to Sunday League rep and they would listen to you no matter what. Then they patched it on FM12 and then they didn't listen to you. And then I was hoping they were going to fix it for this one, but they didn't, and it's still a bug. It's still an error, negative in my opinion. So I think that needs to be tweaked a lot, because otherwise, as I was saying, there is no point being able to set your own reputation, because it ruins the game experience if you try to do it realistically but manage your favourite team, for example. Or if you want to manage England, for example, they don't listen to you. I think the training, again, it's just like the reputation. I think the training, I think they've gone OTT on. I think it's realistic. I think it's easier. I think it's realistic. It's easier in the sense that, if I go to the screen actually, just to show what I'm talking about, this is much easier, much more realistic, because on previous year's game you could download like training schedules, or set your own, of course, and develop players specifically on their own individual training regime. And you can sort of do it on this year's one, but the general training, for example, if you go to a real life football team, they all work together and do a lot of group training, which you do obviously in this year's game with the match training and the general training, and then you can balance how much they do of what and all that good stuff. This is very good. I like the interface here, by the way, with all this training as well. That's very good, but I think they've gone OTT in the sense that if you're trying to develop a young player, for example, on my QPR series, I've been trying to develop Wilfred Zaha. Now, it just doesn't work. You just can't develop a player effectively at all. He's not developed. I've tried him on numerous different saves, and it's not just him. I've tried it with loads of young players, and they just don't develop. It's just completely useless to be able to try and develop a young player. I find they might develop one or two attributes on anything you specifically try to develop, but on previous years' games, you could take a striker with, say, I don't know, a 17-year-old striker with 12 finishing, and by the time he's 21, if you've been working intensely on his finishing, you can get him up to 16, maybe 18 finishing, and he's a beast. But then the rest of his stats haven't really developed because you've been focusing on that one attribute, and then you can start to develop the other attributes, and you end up with a great player. That's, of course, if he's got the potential and he's a world-class potential wonder kids, etc. So I think they've not executed the training as well as they should have done. I think you should be able to develop individual training much better than you can at the moment. I think that although they have left it in, it's just useless, I think. I think from what I've noticed, there's been a real lack of Tycoon takeovers and general takeovers, but specifically Tycoons. And any Tycoons that do take over, they are not Tycoons at all, because they don't invest any money into the team, or very little. On previous years' games, you'd see, for example, Bolton get bought by a Tycoon, and he'd spend £80 million or £50 million as soon as he takes over in the nearest transfer window, and that would transform the fortunes of that club instantly, like they do in real life. This year, I've seen Tycoons, for example, Malaga get bought, and nothing happened. They spent, I think it's like £2.5 million in the next window. The window following that, about £7 million, which is just useless. I personally I used to look forward to when I had takeovers potentially about to happen. I used to get excited about potentially being bought by a tycoon because of all the good stuff that can bring. For example, you can turn yourself into like a Man City sort of team, which is great. But then if you don't want that, you should be able to go into the settings and turn tycoons off. That should be a feature. I know you can turn it on, you can do the settings so that you only get tycoons and stuff like that, or you don't. I know you can sort of do that, but I don't think it's effective as it should be. Another big error I think is that they've got no financial fair play, because that's obviously very, very big in football at the moment, and I think they could have included it, but they just didn't. Or maybe they're going to include it in next year's game, who knows, but I think it should have been in this year's game, because of just how real it is at the moment. I don't think it would have been that difficult for them if they can do, for example, the coefficients, whatever they call it, where your competition can improve or not improve, or decrease or increase its star rating. If they can include that, then I think they can include financial fair play, because it works on a similar sort of thing. In its very basicness, I guess, because if you're, for example, Arsenal making a profit, but then you're Chelsea and you're not, then Arsenal are meeting financial fair play, and for example, they could get a better Champions League. They could have, I don't know what I'm trying to say, they could have a Champions League spot, but then Chelsea couldn't, sort of thing. If Chelsea made a loss for the period of time that financial fair play is, if that makes any sense at all, but Arsenal make profit, then Arsenal get the Champions League spot. Because if going on the league position, of course, then you're what you, I don't know what I'm trying to say. If you're Chelsea and you make a loss for the period of time that financial fair play is intact for, in effect for, but then, for example, the final year, for the fourth year, just say the fourth year, you qualify for the Champions League, but you've been making the previous losses, then your star rating is down, and then therefore you do not qualify for Champions League, or you get fined, or something like that could be included. Is what I'm trying to say, I guess. So I think they could have included it, they just didn't. The biggest thing, I think, the biggest flaw, and probably the most pointless thing in FM, and it has been since as long as I can remember, is your manager's wages. There is absolutely no point to them at all. And anybody who's got half a brain, when they get offered a job, when you get offered £30,000 a week, you instantly drop it down to about £1,000 a week, because all you're doing is costing your club money that you could potentially get for transfers and stuff. There is no point to wages at all. You don't get anything. You don't get to do anything with it. They just sit there, and it gives you a nice little total of how much you've earned. But they're pointless. And so that leaves, I think, you with two options to improve the game. Either go FIFA Manager way, and allow you to have a manager sort of lifestyle, be able to buy things and whatever you can do in FM Manager, a FIFA Manager, sorry. Either be able to do that with the wages, or if I know a lot of people want to be able to buy a club, but that's not Football Manager. That would be a chairman sort of thing. But the game is called Football Manager, not Chairman. So I don't think that's something they should include. It could be a cool thing to add on, maybe as a downloadable content. You can add it onto your game, maybe. But I think in terms of the actual game, I don't think that should be included. But so what do you do with the wages? I think maybe they could include, maybe you could pay for your manager to have language lessons. For example, if you're English trying to manage in Germany, you should be able to use those wages to pay for language lessons so you learn German quicker. You could have training courses. So, for example, your team talks could improve with some sort of motivational lessons. I don't know. You could, for example, you could go to a motivational lesson, and then after a few months of it, your team talks are more effective than they were initially. Or you could do your financial management, maybe. You could, for example, when you first take over a club as a new manager, when you first load the game up, you could or save up. Sorry, you could get a rough outline of how much a transfer is going to be, or something like that, from your scouts, and or when you go to buy a player or something, the money that the agent tries to get out of you is higher than it is after you've done the financial management, because they know they're not going to be able to con you, sort of thing, to get a better deal on their part, if that makes sense. You could include that for the wages, maybe. It's just an idea off the top of my head. That's what you could do to make the wages worth it, because otherwise there is absolutely no point to them at all. But also another thing I do like, sorry, I forgot to mention this one, is transfer deadline day. I think that's good. I've done it once, because since then I just ignore it and skip it, because it gets a bit boring, a bit repetitive. But it's a good, nice feature they've added. So if you want to take part in it, take part in it. But I find it just a bit annoying, so I just skip it. Which, again, it's good that they've allowed you to be able to skip it. You don't have to take part in it. So that's a good, nice feature. However, I do think there should be a job interview when you first take over a job. By this I mean, just say you start at Arsenal and leave them at the end of the season and want to try and take over Liverpool. When applying for the job, you should go through a job interview with the chairman and director of football, or something like that. And it should work in the same sort of way as the NBA, the 2K NBA games do when you do My Player and you've just finished the rookie showcase game, sort of thing. You then go for interviews with the GMs of the teams who want to draft you, and they ask you some questions and see if you're a good fit for them. They could include something similar into FM, where they ask you about what your ideas are on developing youth, or financial management, or tactics, or style of football, something like that. And if they could ask you a number of questions, so that way it becomes hard to predict what the answers are. So, I mean, somebody who plays FM a lot, for example, in the press conferences, I know what the answers are what the questions are gonna be, and I know what the best answers are to give instantly. But if you were to do, for example, in the interview, if the questions were to be completely random, and the answers they look for could be completely random as well, that way it become difficult to predict what answer is best to give, sort of thing. So I think a job interview has to be included. Now, I know once you first take over a job, they do a chairman, you can have a meeting, but that's not a job interview, that's afterwards. That should happen, which it does already, but I think that needs to be in there. With regards to the new game modes, the challenges, and is it FM Classic they call it? I've had a very brief look at them, and is it FM Classic? The trimmed down sort of version of FM. I find that to be I can completely see why they've done it, because there are people who aren't prepared to put 529 hours into a game. Well, it's into the thousands. My hours are, by the time the new game comes out. But I know there are people who aren't prepared to do that, don't have the time for it, etc. So, good idea, but for someone who's a hardcore FMer, for example, it's something I won't be touching. I don't see the point in it for me, but I can completely understand why they've done it. I think it's a good idea for other people to use who don't have the time. With regards to the challenges, I've had a look at them, and I think the idea is good. I think being able to go a whole season unbeaten, for example, I think it's a really good idea. But again, I just don't see any interest in. I've got no interest in them at all. I can only imagine the only time I may even consider doing them is, but when next year's game is, I don't know, a couple of weeks away, and I've completed the Pentagon Challenge, the San Marino Challenge, and all the other general challenges that the FM community have come up with. Once I've completed all of them and I'm literally scratching my head with nothing else to do on it, I may touch them at that point, but other than that, I just don't have any interest in them at all. With regards to the new online play, with being able to do it through Steam, I haven't actually touched that yet. I've not had a go. Again, I'm not a big online playing with friends sort of FMer. I prefer just to go on my own, because I like to play very quickly, get through things very quickly on the full FM, I mean, rather than sit and have to wait for other things. I mean, I know on previous FMs, it used to take ages and ages and ages to get through a game. But I know I imagine on this year's it's quickened up a lot, but not to the speed where that you can get through on your own. I imagine. Again, I can't 100% comment on that. I've not tried it, but that's pretty much going to do it because I've got no more points. So in conclusion, this year's game, I like it. I think there are lots of positives. There are negatives, but most of them are just odd things that they've gone too far on, that maybe they just need to refine a little bit. And also any negatives, there are ways, as I've mentioned, there are ways of turning them into big positives. They could include new things to enhance the game. I think in terms of what my favourite FM is, my favourite FM for me personally was FM 11. I think that was the best. FM 11 or FM 10. I think FM 11 was my favourite because I remember having a lot of great saves on that one. But it's pretty close. It's very good. Very, very pleased with the game so far. There are negatives, as I've said, but generally I like the game a lot. Have I got anything else to mention? If you're new to my channel, welcome to the channel, I guess. Be sure to check out the QPR series as well as the Pentagon Challenge series. Just finished playing quite a lot of QPR today, actually. I've done so. They're all coming along quite nicely. So be sure to check those out. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you've got any opinions on what I've said. If you like this year's game, let me know in the comments. If you don't like this year's game, let me know in the comments. Until then, I will see you guys next time.